All right. Well, happy Wednesday. We are officially more than halfway through March, which is wild. We're on the 19th. We've got like 21 days left. Um, I guess 22 days left this month. And lots of big things are happening, and it's so exciting. I'm really grateful that we are stepping into spring. And I think our mindset is for new, our mindset is for growth. That is why we're here. And so we've kind of been digging through a little bit of just discovering how our brain works, deciding to rewire and shift our perspective on things. And today, I thought we could talk a little bit about the power of identity and influence, because that's essentially what we have as leaders. It's figuring out who are we, what are we capable of, what are we wanting to do in our life. And I just know that God created us to be leaders, right? If you are willing to invest in yourself, you are steps ahead of someone else. You have the power to influence other people. And so I guess I'm trying to start these days with a question and see if we can come up with some thought-provoking ways of thinking. And so if I were to ask you, who are you becoming? Um, if you talk to my team when we do dream boards, that's one of the big questions that I like to ask. I love doing a word dream board. So if you guys have a specific way of doing your dream board, you may not have tried this before, but I am someone who I struggle with putting specific pictures because if it doesn't look like exactly what like what I'm envisioning, I'm like, well, I don't want to put that on my dream board because that's not exactly it. The power of identity and influence. So it's really becoming a leader who impacts lives because that is my goal and my mission. I believe that that's part of my purpose. And so if you want to be someone who, is a leader and who impacts lives, I said this yesterday, truly, you don't get a choice if you're a mom. If you have influence over your kids, right? You start to see them pattern after you in the way that they do things, their mannerisms, their habits, the way they respond to different situations. And so when we start realizing that we are creating that duplication, we are a leader in different areas, but how are we leading? What are we leading them towards? So when I make my dream boards, it's more about like, who do you want to become? That needs to be a goal for us as we make our dream board and our vision board of who we're going to become. We have to really think about what character qualities do we want to embody? How do we want to be known? And how does that shape other people around us? How does that impact other people around us, right? And so you know how it feels when you surround yourself with people who are dreamers, right? And so let me let people in the waiting room here. Um, and so when we want to, have a positive influence on other people, we need to be intentional about that. And so um, I know that once we start to think about what character qualities we want to embody, then we have to start practicing some of those habits. Maybe we need to dig up and work through some of our feelings about different things, right? And so there's always different people that you know of in your life. Who is someone who influences you? So I'm going to challenge you. And I mean, it's not like we'll necessarily know them, but feel free to drop in the chat if there is someone who right off the bat you can think of who influences you. Maybe it's someone you look up to in business. Maybe it's someone you admire the way that they parent. Maybe it's a pastor or someone who's influenced you in your faith. Um, Maybe it's someone who influenced you not for the greatest, right? Maybe it's someone who you found yourself not being the best person when you were around them, and you realized this wasn't an influence you wanted to have in your life, right? So there's so many different leaders that we can look to and that we can aspire to be like, and we can duplicate their actions. And I know I've shared with you guys that I love John Maxwell, and he actually has, he took the Bible and he rewrote the Bible and made a leadership Bible out of it. If you are someone who enjoys that, I just find it fascinating to like the way that he extracts these stories of different people in the Bible and how they exemplified leadership in their life. And some people did it for good and some people did it for bad, but when you start contemplating how you're leading and whether it is positive or negative influence that it's going to have, it also is going to affect the way that you influence other people because our identity shapes our influence. And so I want to dig a little bit deeper today into talking about, I believe that God has given each of us an identity to have greater leadership and to impact people around us. And I think, like I said, being a mom is key. That's number one. Those are the most important influences that we get to create in our life. We're really shaping someone else that's going to go and impact the world and go and impact the future. And so I hope today that we can kind of discover because each of us have unique leadership qualities. You have things that come naturally to you, things that you enjoy doing, things that you're knowledgeable about. And so you have unique leadership qualities, skills, experiences, but are you utilizing them? Are we serving others with them? Are we inspiring other people with the way that we lead? And so we have to, again, like take a look in the mirror and figure out what is our true identity. The way that we see ourselves is going to dictate how we show up in life. Oh, sorry, I've got more people in the waiting room here. Um, and
I should,
so,
it's Shauna.
yes, go ahead.
Hold on. Okay. This is my morning. Just going back. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is like so amazing, an inspiring thing. I have one of my dance students who is 10. Her name is Ruby. When she was 4 years old, she got cancer,
Oh,
and she almost died. And she went through all the treatment and recovered from the cancer. Amazing. She's the cutest little thing ever. And then the treatment that cured her cancer destroyed her liver. So
oh,
then she was in liver failure for 2 years, needed a liver transplant, got the liver transplant while she was in the hospital, did Zoom and did online and watched her dance classes because it was her goal to recover quickly to still be able to do dance performance. So she learned the dances from her hospital bed, sitting. She's 10, and then was able to perform and was like, my job here, she's the cutest thing. She's like, I think it's funny because they're not even religious, but she's like, I think God put me here so that I could show other people that anything is possible. I'm like, you go, girl. And she now, she has a new liver and she's amazing. And like that little girl inspires me every day, everyone at our studio, because we're like, Ruby, okay, whatever you're thinking, like just remember Ruby because that kid is like, she's amazing and she's a miracle. And like, that is inspiration.
it's that's it, right? Like, wow. And think about the impact
Wow.
that she's having on you.
It's me and 250 other students and all of their parents. We did like a fundraiser for her family when she was in the hospital. And like, we wanted to raise a little bit of money. We raised like $10,000. We did a meal train. She literally had so much food that then her family started like donating some of the food to like other people in need because they like got so much.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's cool.
that's inspiring.
Yes, absolutely. And look how it's rallied the community too. You
Yeah,
know, that's pretty
absolutely.
powerful. So,
Anyway, that's
um,
my little
no,
story.
I appreciate you sharing. It's great when we can visualize and we think about those real life examples that we've all seen and how that impacts us. And when there's someone who inspires you to do more or to be better or to strive, to overcome the things that they go through in their life. And sometimes we need that. We need to hear from people where we say, you know what? If they can handle their life, I can handle mine. You know, we need that spot of reflection to realize we don't have it as bad as we think we do. You guys can say morning. This is my son, Tyler. My kids have 2 weeks of March break, so they're still home today, and he just came out to join me. Everybody else is still sleeping in the house. I've got two teenagers. Anyways,
The adult.
one's almost an adult, he says. Like I needed that reminder, right? Anyways, okay. So I love how you shared that too, Shauna, because it is something that we can look at other people and we can say, you know what? Look at her. She's gonna not let this hold her back. And in the middle of a hospital bed, she's still going to be growing herself, be growing her strength, be learning new things. And so we can do that too, despite what it is that we go through. And so, you know, as we think about who we are and how we show up in life and business, are we an overcomer? Are we someone who gets defeated at the first sign of opposition? You know, or are we someone who help people believe that they can overcome things as well? So, as we look through this topic and we think about people that we know, I know I recently watched a documentary about Sarah Blakely. And so that's why I'm like, oh, she just is someone who I never really knew her story before. But she was someone who saw herself as an underdog. You know, she thought that she was not capable of doing all these things, but decided she was just going to believe that she could and see herself as an innovator and do something that had never been done before. And right, she came up with Spanx, and like what woman doesn't know about Spanx now? And you know, the billion-dollar brand that it's become. But in the beginning, when you want to do something that no one's heard of and no one's seen, and maybe you don't have anyone, she didn't have someone else that had created a brand just like hers that she was going to pattern after. She had to be an innovator, you know? And so, and I think that we are, as entrepreneurs, we are also innovators, and we have to decide what that's going to look like for us. And so, again, I know I shared with you guys yesterday some affirmations that I really love about who God created us to be, that we are chosen to walk this road in life. We are chosen, we are called to lead, it tells us. And we are fearfully and wonderfully made. So we can tell ourselves that we're not capable, that we're not good enough, that we don't have the skills. You know, we can berate on ourselves all day long. But the reality is we were created for more. And I remember Shelly made me a shirt once that said made for more. And like I just love it, right? Because that's the proclamation that we have to make over who we are. We are made for more. We are capable of doing more. So if I were to ask you to write down 3 words that describe how you see yourself, we kind of did this the last couple of days of like, what are some of those limiting beliefs that we have? What are some of those words that we've conditioned ourselves to believe are part of who we are? But I want to ask you instead to write out 3 words of something that you want to be like. So, what are 3 character qualities if you could embody in the way that you live your life, or if someone was giving a eulogy at your funeral? That sounds kind of morbid, but I really, for me, that's been a great source of reflection. I lost my mom, and hearing the way that people remembered her, it made me realize how impactful her life was and how many people she had an impact on that she didn't even know she had an impact on. Right. And so the same thing is true for you. You're impacting people either for positive or for good. But let's think about 3 things that you would want to be known for. And I'd love to hear that. Okay. So, a quote I always tell others is there is always a positive in every situation, no matter what the situation is. I want to be known as someone who gives my all. I want to be known as someone who's authentic, empathetic, and kind. I love that. I want to be known as I want to be more organized. I want to be more patient, and I want to be more calm. So those are ways that you'd want your kids to remember you, right? And how many of us, if we said, would our kids remember us as being this calm person, or are our kids going to remember the days that we freaked out and we lost our cool and we yelled at them? You know, I want to be known as someone who is resilient, selfless, and authentic. Wow, those are powerful words. Authentic. That is definitely something that um, leaves a lasting impact. Someone who is loving, caring, and compassionate. I want to be present. Ooh, that is a good one, especially when it comes to being a mom. I want to be a present mom. I want to be an example of what is possible. Love this, right? So as we start thinking about the things we do want to be, it gives us that moment to stop and have some reflection. Like, am I present right now? Am I in the moment with my kids right now? Am I someone who, operates with integrity now? Is that something that people would know me for? Would people say that I'm a go-getter? Would they say that I'm a quitter or that I'm someone who never quits? Someone that has a big heart? Absolutely. Right. And so if we were speaking life over someone to say those sorts of things, right, we can often identify positive traits in other people that we don't necessarily recognize in ourselves. And so yesterday we talked about like be that person that goes out and compliments other people when there's something that you see about them. I don't know why we choose to make life so much of a competition. And the more we admire about other people, the more they can admire about us, right? And we can change the tone in the atmosphere. Like I said, we've all got our phones and we're like heads down and, in our own world and not interactive and engaging with other people the same way as we used to. When we think about life, when most of us were growing up, there was a lot more interaction, right? Our moms were very present with us because they didn't have a phone in their hand all the time. And and so as much as we can say, well, the world has changed, when we take time to stop and reflect on that, what were the things that you appreciated about? How many times do you remember your parent actually having a deep conversation with you and not being distracted? And our kids are growing up with knowing that the second our phone dings, your eyes avert over there. And it does shift our relationships with people. It shifts the way that we impact them. If you've been at dinner with someone who like is picking up their phone every 2 seconds, you probably don't feel like they really are engaged in your conversation. Or did they even hear what you just said, right? And so that feeling that you leave them with, people will, not always remember what you say, but they will remember how you make them feel. And so I think that we do struggle with our identity oftentimes. Um, we don't recognize who we truly are, and we don't embrace who we want to become. And that's why thinking about these words and saying, this is who I am, or this is how I want to be known is going to shift our activity in our life. And I think society often tells us who we're supposed to be, right? And we've seen how much that has changed over the years. And just reading some articles lately about how we got conditioned through news and media to think that like, moms shouldn't want to spend time with their kids. Moms, getting 2 hours a day is enough, and all of these kind of concepts that have become our reality often are imposed by society, or maybe they're imposed by past experiences that we had, good or bad. And so, if you grow up in a poor family, for example, you don't have to believe that that is what you're slated to for the rest of your life, and then that's what your kids have to have. You have to know that you have a purpose and you have a calling, and then you have to go after it. So again, the power of our words is so impactful, right? When we say that we can't, and we've decided to remove that out of our vocabulary now, right? Um, and instead of saying I can't or I'm not or I don't or, any of those limiting words, we can decide that we're going to be what we want to be. I am in the process of becoming. I am developing into. I am prepared and capable, even if I don't have the skill just yet, right? And um, so when you start to replace those thoughts that you've had with these empowering truths and you stand up and you live that out every day in the way that you act, it starts to become a habit, right? And I meant to find that quote for you guys that's like, you say it and it becomes, it moves from like you say it to you believe it to you live it and it becomes a part of who you are. So, what makes a great leader? I think we all might have a different perspective on that. But leadership really isn't about just having a title, right? Someone could be a corporate presidential director and not have character, right? They could be someone that nobody knows, that they haven't had much influence. I mean, now it's difficult to get to those places without having some form of influence. But you can be a leader who loves on other people, who believes in other people, who spends time with other people, who is a servant-driven leader. You're going to be remembered for that versus you could be a leader who offends people, seems selfish, doesn't want to help anybody, and that would be how you're known. Think about someone like Mother Teresa, for example, right? She was someone who technically on paper had no power, but yet because she had servant-hearted leadership and was out there and making an impact, she inspired a lot of people. Now, again, that may have been a perception for some, but like, how are you perceived? So there are a few sort of, I guess, principles of influence, right? Where authenticity really matters. And you know that if there's a leader in your life that you appreciate or admire, they're probably an authentic person, right? People follow real, not perfect. And oftentimes we forget that when it comes to social media, and social media becomes that highlight reel, right? And so people follow real, not perfect. People want someone who is empathetic. Someone else said that in the chat earlier, and I think that's a really great word to use. People crave connection. They don't want someone who's just in a position of authority over them. They want someone who connects with them. And I think it's the difference between being a boss and being a leader, right? A boss is like driving people and telling them what to do and, kind of taking authority over them, where a leader is inspiring people to follow after them. And not even to follow after them. I like to view it as linking arms with people. You know, I might have a different title than people on my team, but I don't, I love the collaboration. I feel like we're a team, we're equals. I learn as much from them as they learn from me. Doesn't matter if they just started 2 days ago, they've got a life experience or something that they're going to teach me. But the most important thing is the connection, is saying, let's do this together, versus do what I'm telling you to do. And again, it's the same way for our kids when we invite them into those circumstances with us and we invite them, come, you know, come bake with me. I'm not going to sit over here and bark at you what to do. We're going to do this together. And so connection is really important if you want to be a person of influence. And I love that we're in a relationship building businesses. If you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't even matter what your business is. It matters that you connect with people. If you don't connect with people, you're not going to have clients no matter what it is you do. So being authentic, being empathetic, but also being visionary, right? You have to be someone who sees where you want to get to. And oftentimes people lack the confidence. And that's why I think us doing mindset calls and focusing on mindset is one of the most powerful things that moves you into a place of leadership because you carve out time for yourself to be creative, to allow yourself to see the vision, to be surrounded with other people who also see a vision, and that is going to help you be able to move forward. So, if I asked some of you guys to share a story of someone whose leadership positively impacted you, is there something that comes to mind? Is there someone who maybe you watched them in an interaction as a parent and it inspired you to become a better parent? Is there someone who the way they talked about or they treated their spouse or their partner inspired you to maybe be a better partner? Um, is there someone who is able to cast a vision for where they were going and or where you could go that impacted you? So I'm just going to catch up on some of these other character qualities you guys want to be known for and just repeat these out again for our recording. So being present, being caring and authentic, being loyal, fun loving, and a good listener. Ooh, that's a good one. Um, caring, authentic, inspiring. A leader to me is someone who wants to help you get further along in whatever you want to do, helping answer questions and doing what she says. Read the book Soup by John Gordon. It's an amazing book on leadership. I haven't heard of that one. Everyone on my team has something to bring to the table, and I love learning from them. Absolutely. There are Instagram accounts that I follow that share really awesome parenting tips and make me reflect a lot on my own parenting. It's now a part of my feed daily, and I love it. That's right. I love, like, we can cultivate that vision of what we want to see, even in our friggin' news feed on our social media, right? And it's positive in, positive out. If you're watching people that are authoritative and yell at their kids all the time, you're probably going to start to duplicate some of that, right? And it's the same reason, however you were brought up, that probably became the narrative and just what the norm was for you. But it doesn't have to be the norm, right? If you don't like it, you can change it. Our brains and this neuroplasticity, like, we don't have to believe that things have to be one set way. We can carve out a new path. We can be trailblazers that show people a different way of doing things. So, what will you be remembered for? That's your legacy, right? And a legacy is not going to be built in a day. It's something that comes as a result of the daily choices that we make. That every day in difficult circumstances, the way that we choose to rise above, the things that we choose to do, the way that we create joy in the atmosphere around us, I think that matters. And I want to have a lasting impact, right? And that's something where it became um, it became a way of living for me after losing my mom and realizing that the legacy that she left was, my mom was a woman of faith. She was someone who didn't make excuses, and she didn't complain, no matter how sick she was, no matter what she went through. My mom, she was an overcomer, and she had a lot of things she could have complained about, but she didn't. She was solutions focused, and she wanted to bless other people. And I remember sitting in the hospital waiting room at chemo treatments, and her telling me how she felt like God sent her there to be able to be a smile in someone else's day who was going through difficult things. And we can choose to be that. It doesn't matter what our life looks like. It doesn't matter how many difficult things we're facing. We can choose to be an overcomer, and we can choose to have a positive influence on other people. And that can become our legacy. And there's a verse in Proverbs that talks about how a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. And my mom is someone who, that was the legacy that she left for us. And I want to do that too, right? I want to be known as a good person who my children's children will um, remember for that. And I mean, my kids are young, and they passed away when my mom was young. And they never really got the chance to know her well in person, but it blows me away sometimes. We were looking at pictures a while back with my son, and he was like, "Wait, I was just a baby when Grandma Jones died." And I was like, "Yeah, he was only a year old when she passed away." But he feels like he knows her. And that makes me so proud that in some way I've been able to pass on her legacy, that he feels like he knows her, right? And so I think that you are building a legacy. You are impacting other people. You are leaving an inheritance for your children's children. And your business, your influence, your leadership is going to outlive you. And that's only going to happen if we build it on the right foundation and if we stay consistent with that. Excuse me. So, if you write down what you would want people to say about you at the end of your journey, and those words that we talked about, what daily habits would help you live into that legacy and create that legacy? What daily habits will help you create that legacy? I'm leaving you space so these can be like, allow yourself a moment to think about that. What daily habits with your children would you create to leave a lasting legacy with them? How do you want your kids to know you? How do you want them to tell your kids, their kids, sorry, if only you knew grandma, or one thing about grandma is, what would that be? Give yourself a minute to really like to write this down and to take ownership to know that this is a habit that you can create or a way that you can choose to interact. I think it's really very powerful. I'm challenging you guys. Um, our identity is really going to shape our influence. Our leadership is about serving others. We get to practice this in so many aspects of our life. Our legacy is built through daily actions. So, what would your leadership commitment be today? What's one action that you could take today that will help you step into your identity and your influence? Because you are called to lead. Say that to yourself. I am called to lead. I am created to have influence. I am building a legacy that's going to impact generations. We have to lead boldly. And the world tells us not to. The world tells us to, hide our light. And I think, if you've worked in a retail job, or if you worked in a job where you have the same job description as other people, right? And in business, it's the same. We all have the same, business if you're in the same company, right? We all have the same business here, but it's up to us to choose what we're going to make out of it. What's our attitude going to be? What's our daily actions that we're going to take? How big are we going to grow our network? Are we going to stay consistent? Are we going to be persevering through the challenges that life throws at us? We're all going to be hit with sickness. We're all going to be hit with um, inconveniences, a car breaking down, financial hardship, whatever. We're all going to face that, but we have to choose, even before it happens, how we're going to be an overcomer and how we're not going to let that stall us out, but we're going to continue to move forward. So, what are some of these things you guys are sharing here? Oh, I lost my chat. Yeah. I was looking for this. Do you hear my son? He's like, I was looking for this last night. Okay. Side note, if you guys have not gotten this new honey and cream hand lotion, it is the best. It is the best one that I've tried yet. I love Renew, but I'm telling you guys, this one smells like oranges, which I wasn't expecting because it's honey and cream, but it smells like just delicious, right? Yeah, you like it too. He's like, you stole it. You hid it out in the office. Um, okay, so I would want to be remembered, yes, when my kids are talking to me, to put my phone down and mute it. I want them to remember that I was fun, faith-filled, and connect with others. Yes, you inspire them that way. I've got some heavy stuff going on in my life right now that pertains to this. Whew, this is so good and something I needed. God is so good. I'm so grateful that He had this word for you today. Openness, that I respect people and I love the Lord. Yes, that she loved conditionally and with all her heart, that I was always happy and loved to dance around like a crazy person. And I loved my worship time. Girl, I would love to be at worship with you. Empathy and confidence. It is really, my kids will remember that I will advocate for them and never let anyone hurt them. Spending time with them by going to do things with them, loving, because I always love on the kids. I cheer them on when they do great things, and I always put my phone down when my kids talk to me. Yeah, eye contact is being lost in this generation. Finding the good in any situation, person, and being positive. I love it. Well, I would love to hear if anybody wants to unmute and come in with your perspective or your ahas today. And, if you have a story of someone who's influenced you, or maybe it's a way one of your parents influenced you, or a grandparent, someone in your life, when we take time to like relive and appreciate these memories, we allow ourselves to cultivate the ability to embody that character. And if you were to write down things today, and maybe we'll make this a part of like as we go every day, if you were to write down Maybe we should all get a sticky notepad. That's what I'm going to challenge you guys to do. Get a sticky notepad, and we'll use these in the mornings, and we'll start adding things that we want to know or that we want to commit to about who we want to be. But if you were to take a character quality and say, this is something I'm going to work on cultivating in myself this year. I know I struggle with patience or organization, someone said, or whatever it is, right? Um, it's great to have the thought, but it's much better to commit to it. I want to be remembered that I was always there for anyone who needed. I was authentic and creative in how Jesus changed my life. I love your story, Shelley. It's powerful. Yeah. Praising God. Priorities are right. And I'm an open door that they can talk to. I want to find the good in every situation, person, and be positive. Yes, these are amazing things, right? And it's funny because we can say, oh, of course I would want to be these things. But giving ourselves time and space to concretely determine and decide that this is something we're going to step towards intentionally, is really going to be very powerful. Does anybody have anything they want to share this morning? Open it up here.
I know one thing that I want to share.
Yeah.
Um, my whole life, I like struggled because my family has been poor, but also I grew up with two parents that were addicted to drugs. So I went through a lot of hardships, and I always know that when people tell you can't do something, that doesn't mean you can't. That just means that it gives you fuel for the fire that you have in your heart or in your belly, whatever it might be, that you can do whatever you put your mind to. And I'm instilling that into my kids. So that way they know that no matter what anybody says, that's not your limiting belief, that's not your ceiling. You can go as high as you want.
Yes. I love that. We all want that for our kids, right? That's the intentionality behind it. Thank you, Felicia. Anybody else? Anything that comes to mind for you? Great. Well, I will close us out if everybody's just mulling on these thoughts. But I encourage you to go and make a post about it. Talk about, who you want to become, or share the legacy of someone who's impacted you and let their legacy impact other people. And, that was something that has been really key for me, that has kept me grounded and grateful, because I think it's easy when we go through difficult things and when we go through grief. And I've seen so many people who just get completely taken out because of grief, right? I'm sure we've all probably lost someone in our life, and um, and it really has helped me to think about the fact that even though my mom's legacy building time on this earth stopped, her legacy carries on. It's a part of how I live, the way that she impacted me. And so I want you to think about the people that you loved and admired. Maybe it was a grandparent, a teacher, someone. How can their legacy live on in you? What's something that you can pass on? Maybe it was a phrase that they said to you or a perspective that they took on something, the way that they made something, that becomes a part of their legacy. And for you to continue to practice it or to tell someone else that story, it actually keeps them alive, and it lets their legacy live on. So I challenge you guys to do that today. And yeah, I love it. Precious says, I just love the topic of identity and influencer because I'm serving in my community. I'm with the kids most of the time, and this will absolutely help me to gain strength in many ways. That's amazing. I love that. Um, I don't know if she's got her camera on today, but Precious is, I went on a missions trip to Africa 8 years ago, and I met her, and she became my African daughter, and I'm so proud of her. And I'll tell you, if you've never been on a missions trip or you've never been somewhere else, again, when you need a perspective shift to just appreciate your life. But I will say that Precious and all of the people in her community out there, they're so grateful. They're grateful for every single thing that they have, and they focus on that. And the community is so strong. They would give anything for someone else in their community. I remember us being told when we got there to the care points, like you can't give something to one child that you can't give to every child. And someone there gave one of the kids a cookie. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is going to cause an issue. Like, this is what they warned us about. You don't just give to one. And that one child took the cookie and broke it off into little tiny bits and put a little tiny bit in the mouth of every other child. And I thought, that is how we need to live. You know, when we have something that's a blessing to us, we need to pass it on and we need to not be selfish and try to keep things for ourselves. And so that's where I'm so grateful for you guys taking this time to come in here and to be able to share the things that I've learned, but I can't wait for you to continue sharing the things that you're learning. And so I appreciate everyone for sharing their reflections in the comments and things like that as well. And just knowing that we're all overcomers, no matter what our life looks like, we don't have it that bad. Yeah, that was an
Morning.
amazing experience. Good morning. How are you?
Blessed and highly favored. Um, Morning Queens. I honestly, I'm listening and wanted to chime in so many different times, but the little royals would just not let me do it. And now I'm dropping off my teenager to school. But I wanted to say, like, we have to really remember, like, if we continuously think outside of business and just who we want to be and represent, and like, even if no one else noticed, what would God approve about us, right? Like we're already approved, but like how proud and delighted would God be that even in the mundane little things, like I caught myself this morning talking, going, I'm trying to get my mindset right so I could be nice to y'all this morning. And you guys are switching up my energy. And then I'm like, I had to keep saying, choose joy, Toya, choose joy, and shift my energy because your kids will do that, right? And if you allow them to.
Yeah.
And so, and just yesterday I had a very proud moment of myself. Like, I don't know, God has just really been using me as a vessel to speak to people lately. And his timing is so impeccable. Like, I want to stress this like no other, Jeremiah 29:11, that like for the plans he has for us are like, they're so good. They're so much better than ours. And trust in the timing. Yesterday, I planned that I was going to make a errand stop after I went home and did a few other things. And God literally veered my car into this hair shop that was last on my list. I go in there, I run into a girl that I know from elementary school, and we've kept a connection throughout. But when I saw her, I was like, Natasha? And she said, like, instantly she wanted to cry because she hasn't seen anybody in like what feels like years to her that she knows that knows her from that time. And that she really needed a friendly face.
Mhm.
And then she shared with me, like, she's been fully dealing with her mom who has dementia with Alzheimer's. Her daughter has now become a cutter and is like doing all these other things. And I just said to her, we are not feeding into this. Like, in the middle of the hair store, that other women started coming around and go, I don't know your story. But I said to her, when you know your identity in Christ, nothing or no one or any situation is going to stop you. And this other woman was like, yes, know your identity in Christ. And it became like this, like, complete Holy Spirit moment.
Yeah.
And I was just filled with so much joy. She said, I can feel something from the top of my head right now, and it's running down my whole body. I said, that's God letting you know that even when you think you're so separated from him, there's nothing you can do to separate yourself from the love of God. And sometimes I don't think we're passionate enough about what we know God to do, that we have become the evidence that God exists.
Mm.
And literally, I had church in the BSW hair store. And the fact that all these other women started like coming around and saying, I'm praying for your situation. Like, what's your name? Can you tell me your name? And I literally said to her, you're on my prayer list. And then I gave her my phone and I said, Tosh, put your number in my phone. I'm going to call you every day. We live 5 minutes away from each other. I'm like, there's no way. She's like, Toy, I barely get an hour to myself. I'm like, well, then I'm going to be the friend to help you create an hour for yourself. Like, I barely figured out how to get an hour to myself, but I figure it out. So honestly, understand your assignment, that it's so much greater than what we're all trying to achieve, that like, what connected us in the first place to come on these calls and do whatever, that God is so good. He is so intentional. He don't play about us. And then if we keep remembering that even in the wilderness to continue to worship, he is going to show us how he's been in it all the time. That when we look back, we're going to be like, oh my God, you were there in that moment. So
Mhm.
anybody who needs that encouragement today, don't allow yourself to be quiet. When you feel that nudge, say something or give that person the smile that even if they don't smile back, who that they may need it. You know, like I think we have this society right now, we're in an era where there's so much disconnection and the enemy is thriving off of that. His agenda is to have us be divided in our homes, in our relationships, in our friendships, in our community. And the more we fight back by actually looking people in their eyes and hugging people with purpose and intention, we are going to shift and break that agenda. I rebuke it and bind it right now. I say, loose all the separation right now, Father God, from all these people's lives and bring more connection, Father. Like, this is where we all need to be. And I think if we understand that in those little movements, us as a body of Christ is going to make the bigger shift happen. It's going to seem like an explosion,
Mhm.
but it's all of our intentional things that have been happening. So it's in our household. It's what we say to our kids. It's what we say to ourselves. It's what we say to a stranger. People get in the elevator, don't even look at anybody. They're just like, they barely say number two.
Yeah.
And like. So like, let's connect. Let's throw people off with kindness. Let's show them, because we may be the only interaction that they have with God that day
Mhm. Mhm.
and the Bible. And, that's what I strive for. I'm not perfect. I don't get it right every day, but I at least try to be intentional that I know that if nothing else, this is what I can do. And Barb, honestly, in leadership and in motherhood and in friendship and sisterhood, a lot of that I've gained from you. Our 8 years of being in each other's lives, 8 years plus now of being in each other's lives has really given me the strength to get through a lot of difficult seasons and for me to really understand I'm not an anomaly. There's people, I think my situation's hard. And then I listen to like my girl yesterday and I'm like, I'm actually I'm pretty good. These aren't the things that I go to bed at night having on my mind and waking up out of fear. And that's the other thing is recognizing, like you've always said, recognize when the enemy's trying to be in your ear, Latoya, and not that when it's not God. And so when you're feeling fear and you're feeling doubt and you're feeling, overwhelm and confusion, anxiety and depression, those are not characteristics of the God that we serve. So when you do feel that, to just be like, Lord, loose me from this overwhelm, loose me from this anxiety, loose me from this, I can't today. And remind me that I am wonderfully and fearfully made, that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Lord, remind me that your plans are better than mine. Like to combat everything, there's something in the Bible. That's why we have to put our armor on every single day. And because of who you are, you've reminded me to do that. Like sometimes you will be texting and you'll call me like, girl, stop this right now. In the name of Jesus, I rebuke all of this way of thinking. Take captive of your thoughts right now. And we're switching it up. And I'm usually the girl, don't talk about yourself like that. I'm usually catching, rebuking, canceling. But when you're in your own situation, it can feel
Yeah.
so heavy. So I just felt like I needed to share that someone needed that message or reminder today to just, be everything that God has called us to be in the little things, in the big things, doesn't matter. If he's present, it's already taken care of. It's already good. You've already made change. Even if the person doesn't tell you that you've made an impact, something's happening. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you for
I
sharing.
want to add on to her because when she was talking in the beginning, when you were saying like, God literally took my car and like made me go this way. And it's so interesting because I do that even with like text messages.
Yeah.
Like I'll get like a text message from somebody and I'm immediately kind of annoyed. Like, what, like, why are we, you just get annoyed with I don't know. There's just all these circumstances I can think of where I kind of get annoyed at first. And then I like back up, like, maybe this is like God, maybe this is like a God thing. Maybe like I'm supposed to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And maybe, like we can all kind of get in our head, like, especially like any like business related, sometimes like if we're not showing up and doing the work and we get like a text about like, hey, you were supposed to blah blah, and we're like kind of defensive, and then it's like, no, actually, this is this is probably a really big blessing. Like I probably need to have this conversation. I actually did it last week, and it's funny. It was a hair salon too. I didn't really want to go get my hair cut. Like I was kind of just dreading it. Like, just like having to leave my house and find like my husband had to take all the kids. And I was kind of like, I'm just going to cancel. Like, I'm just going to cancel because this is just stupid at this point. Like, my hair can sit on my head for a little longer. And then I went and my hairdresser, well, she wanted information about Melaleuca for one, but then a huge thing was that her mom the night before was diagnosed with cervical cancer or pain, yeah, cervical cancer. So I was just like, oh my gosh, like it was just crazy. Like I'm sitting in the chair and I was just like, last night? And she's like, yeah, so I don't know. And I just like, I had to be there. Like I needed to be there in that chair. And if I would have canceled, I wouldn't have even known what was going on. Um, but it's just wild the things that like the conversations we have. I always say like nothing is coincidence. Like God has a hand in every single person you connect with, every conversation you have, whether it's social media, in person, on the phone, whatever. It could be like I get my groceries delivered because we kind of live in like the middle of nowhere. So I appreciate being able to have my groceries delivered. And I always think when the person comes, I always think like, what are they going through? Like, are they like going through something? I don't know. I just like always feel this pull to like give them my phone number or something. Like I always just kind of like feel like my heart just kind of like, I don't know, they're doing this for extra income.
Yeah.
And I always like feel a pull to, my husband always says like, why don't you just like give them like a goodie bag with like your
Good.
business card or something in it? Like it has your phone number. I'm like, I probably should. So maybe that's like a thing I should be doing. But anyway, I
Absolutely.
just, I just think God works in crazy ways.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, definitely sounds like it was a divine appointment that he put you in that chair. And I mean, again, even just for the fact that you are someone who has invested in your growth, you have developed so much leadership that not everyone would have the capacity to sit and hear that story or to be the sounding board or to have the words of encouragement that you were able to have for her. And the fact that, I mean, even for her to be interested in what it is that you have, like that honestly probably gave her a lot of hope in that moment to feel like there's something positive she can do in the midst of a difficult circumstance. And so yeah, we need to not underestimate or overlook those opportunities that God gives us to be someone that gets to speak life into other people, and to be there for them. So I'm so glad that you did that. And I absolutely think we have these little nudges that we ignore so often. And so I hope that you do like make those packages because you never know whether that person is craving a connection with you that they don't have a way to have at this moment, right? So, oh, I love that. She says, yes, I was just thinking so many people need these calls. There are so many people hurting who would love these types of conversations. Do you know, I have felt like God has been putting this on my heart for so long, and it really has served so many people over the years that we've run the calls. And honestly, it was a lack of obedience on my part to not be doing them sooner. But I do believe that God's timing is perfect. And I believe, that this is a new season and he's doing a new thing. And so I don't know who these calls are meant to serve, but I want you all to feel free to invite people who may need this. Because a lot of times people are craving community and connection. And I think people seek out, all of these things in life. And um, sometimes it's just for a lack of knowing. Maybe you grew up and you weren't raised in a home where you've ever heard about Jesus. And I hope no one ever takes it offensively coming on these calls, but I will be bold about my faith because that is the only way I made it through the difficult situations that I've been through in my life. And it's the only way I feel like I found fulfillment in my life in understanding that I actually have a purpose. And it's the same for all of us, but there's so many people who go through life feeling unfulfilled, and feeling hopeless. And so I hope that this will give them a glimpse of the life that God has for them. So invite people to come and join us, and use this as something to speak life over other people. So I'm so grateful for our conversations. I'm grateful for you guys taking time to be here in the mornings, and looking forward to see all the growth that comes out of this, and the life that we get to do together. So, all right, I am gonna close this out. Is there anyone else who feels led that they want to close us out this morning? I'm gonna give you guys that opportunity as well. Yes. So, Erlinda, I was just saying I'm going to open a Facebook group, and then I'm going to try to get these recordings uploaded and added into there so that if we miss them, we can go back and listen to them. And it's also then a place where you guys can share encouragement for each other. So, all right. Ty, do you want to come pray for us this morning? We could just pray for everybody to have a good day. You good? All right. Go ahead.
Dear Jesus, thank you for this day. I pray for everybody that they'll make lots of money today so they can live. And thank you for Maluka, and thank you for you and everything you created. I bless everybody in the world to follow you. Amen.
Amen. All right, guys, we'll have a blessed day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning. Don't forget about Wellness Wednesday tonight, guys. Side note, get your people on it. It's going to be amazing.